right. Another week, another episode of Side Note. And this week, I have Halifax's biggest DJ and producer, Simon, in town for 1 week only.
1 weekend. I play hardstyle exclusively.
Yep.
I don't go below 150 BPM.
Do you play Gabber as well?
Sometimes Gabber. Sometimes I'll dip into that late in the night.
Yeah.
People are feeling it. But mostly hardstyle.
But also,
I like a really saturated kick.
But also levels and losing it.
So what I like to do is I'll play a hardstyle track, and then I'll go into the build up, and then when it breaks down, I'll just drop levels. People go off, especially if there's like pyrotechnics and stuff. It's like.
And all right, in all seriousness, folks, I had some guests drop out. So my good friend here, Simon, has elected and volunteered out of the goodness of his heart to, to come fill the slot. And fuck it. He's an entertaining guy. We have entertaining conversations. So, we're just going to put this out there and see what the internet has to say.
I really appreciate that. Really high billing there, Nick. I'm happy to be the backup guest for you on the podcast. I want to say a couple things. First, I'm stoked to be here doing this with you. I'm so excited for this podcast and what you're doing. I know you're working so hard on it, and I'm super impressed and excited for you because I think it's gonna be really, really cool what you're building, and it's gonna fill a little hole that needs to be filled. And talk about the things that you're talking about. I hope that to the viewers out there, the guests that I'm following, I think are pretty hard to follow that you've had so far. So I don't know what I'm going to add to the conversation, but I hope to say something interesting, but I'll settle for being entertaining.
I feel like you have a lot to add. Like Rogan has his like cadre of interesting friends that people love. Anytime like Duncan Trussell is on or Ari Shaffir is on, I'm like, yes. And, if and when this thing gets big, hopefully.
It will, but I am more than happy to be your Ari Shaffir any day of the week.
You're going to be a household name one day, dude.
It's soon. Odd, though, because you've had people on that are, like, really creating things. And I feel like for the scene, and I'm, like, still at a point where I'm just consuming.
Right, and I as well. That's, like, definitely something that I preface every conversation with, the real DJs that I meet with, like, I'm primarily consumer. I'll throw a party here and there, pretty good bedroom DJ, but you and I are the same. We're consumers, but you know what? Like, we're what drives the scene. And
we pay the bills, I guess. Right? I pay my entrance fees. We go out and enjoy it.
People ought to be interested in what we as longtime consumers of rave have to say.
Yeah, if there's any promoters out there, lasers are essential to any good party. You need the lasers.
Actually, speaking of, so I've noticed that of late, there's fewer lasers and more like LED lights. Have you noticed this trend?
So I went really deep down the laser rabbit hole a while ago. And so as you know, I have my own like personal use laser. We brought it out to one of your parties once. I think it added a little something, but it leaves something to be desired. It's a home use laser. I actually don't think it's legal in the States. I bought it from China. So I don't think it's actually, because I think the colors or the way it projects or like the intensity is not actually like legal for consumer use. But but that's like a thing because I love lasers, and lasers are fantastic. They really make or break the party. I mean, it's all about the music, but also lasers are great to have as well. And I was thinking after I brought it out to your party, I got home and the next day I was like, you know what? Maybe this is the thing that I bring to the scene. Maybe this is what I create. To stop consuming. So I went way deep down the laser purchase rabbit hole. Like I'm all over eBay. I'm on the laser message boards, this whole thing. And what I realized was like, there's a lot of restrictions around like laser use.
I had no idea. I mean, I know you can't like shine lasers into the sky because of airplanes and shit, but.
So it's like, I think there's a whole I might have no idea what I'm talking about, but if I'm remembering correctly, or there's definitely some variation on this. I don't know if I'm describing the rules exactly, but there's like, I think you need to be like a licensed laser operator to furnish lasers for a party. Because you need, it's like a whole thing because you have to have them aimed properly.
Certified laser.
I don't know if it's
laser
like
operator, laserist.
I think it's like maybe I think you need a license to own a laser and use it at public events. Or there's some type of like classification that you need, because when you go to like performance grade lasers, like you can straight up like blind thousands of people if you don't operate them properly.
That's fair.
You know, like
yeah,
if
like
you don't know,
Coachella.
if you don't know how to operate them, you just like aim them directly at the entire crowd. Like people are going to be blinded. So I think there's this whole like to like purchase and operate a laser above like a one of those like home use like kind of boring lasers. I think it's like a whole process.
So that was the barrier to entry for you in terms of becoming a laser person.
Yeah, well,
for the scene. Like I don't know where to get this certification.
Obviously we would kind of do it renegade style, but
Right.
it made me worry about my exposure from a liability standpoint. You know, like I'm not worried about like, because I feel like if we were doing a renegade party and we had a laser there and the authorities showed up, the first priority wouldn't be like, who's operating this laser? You know, it'd be like, wait, why are there 500 people in the desert right now? And why is there like a performance grade sound system out here?
Yeah.
I think the lasers would be farther down on the list, but it was more like, wait a minute, maybe I'm like dabbling in waters that are a little more unsafe than I think that they are. And I don't want to do something wrong.
So maybe this is why the LED light has gained such prominence.
Yeah. Well, I heard there was like some controversy with Mayan. I might be making this up also, but I heard that there was some kind of controversy with like Mayan Warriors lasers at Burning Man.
Oh, interesting.
Several years ago. And like where someone got blinded.
Holy shit.
Like they were aimed wrong. And if you look at that car, I don't even know if they're actual lasers on it. I think they might just be really high intensity LED lights.
I think they're actual lasers, but it almost looks like it's attached to some kind of hinge that somebody is manually moving up and down, because you see the way those lasers move on the car. It looks very manual. It doesn't look like a machine is in charge of the operations.
Nick was carefully studying the lasers. He was in the perfect state of mind to exactly pick up the movement, the motion, and how they were aimed. It was with like completely in the middle, about 3 o'clock in the morning, in a perfectly cognizant.
I could perceive every movement of the lasers across the entire art car. And for folks who don't know, Mayan Warrior is an amazing art car that originates from Mexico, I think.
Somewhere in Mexico City. Maybe,
yeah. And it's got an amazing sound system. It's one of the kind of staples of Burning Man. And every year, they have a, whole slate of DJs that play all week. And it's pretty amazing. Follow them on Instagram. Shout out to Mayan Warrior and check them out. They're going to be in LA on Halloween. I think they're in Austin. Have no affiliation, but just thought I'd plug them because they're pretty fucking
They're great.
awesome.
Yeah, we went, when was that, 2 years ago?
Yeah, we went in 2019, pre-Pandy. Yeah. Like a month or two before Burning Man.
That was an awesome
that
party.
We also went to.
I'm like super curious about how they transport that thing from Mexico.
Well, it's a bus, right? So they drive.
Oh yeah, they might just disassemble everything and then drive it. But even that sounds like that's an undertaking.
I think it does, like, because they do a thing in New York, and like I think it does like a cross country tour where it's like, okay, we're gonna do New York, and then they're stopping in Austin this year, and then they stop here, and then I don't know if they go back to Mexico before they head up to the burn. Well, no burn this year, unfortunately.
No burn. Well, some people are doing the burn.
Renegade burn?
Renegade burn.
Renegade burn without any sort of infrastructure just seems like a no-go for me.
I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I don't know how that'll end up. Like, because maybe it's a thing where people are talking about going and nobody's going to go, but there's only people talking about going. And it's like, I don't know, if there's like 10,000 people out there building stuff, what is the BLM going to like stop by each camp and shut them down? I don't know why. I don't know how that's all going to be.
Yeah, but never mind that though. Like, what are they going to do with what's the porta potty situation?
Well, last year some camps brought porta potties.
Okay. And are they hiring trucks to come in on
there's that's part of the restrictions is there's no commercial services. So I don't think there will be pumping in and out, but I I don't know. I feel like for the people that will be going, the porta potty situation is not incredibly important. Like they'll bring a bucket or find another way to make that work.
I don't know. Could you fuck with that? I don't know that I would be able to fuck with that. Like it was hard enough, even with all the infrastructure they do have with like the ice.
Yeah, I say no now, but I also like 10 years ago didn't expect to fuck with Burning Man full stop. So it's like, I don't know. It's a slippery slope for me with all this stuff. It's like, no, I mean, bucket in the desert, no, but then I don't know. Everybody else is going on.
Yeah, and this guy fucks with it hardcore, right? Like you just drive into BRC in your car. No truck, no SUV. No truck. It's just you.
It's the most low budget possible and uncomfortable camping situation.
Like, do you sleep in your car?
No, I sleep in a $30 Coleman tent that I bought from Walmart on the way to a camping trip like 10 years ago.
And like, what's your temperature regulation protocol?
I mean, it's terrible. It's like not good. I don't know. It's like every one that I've talked to about this is like, how do you do that? That must be so uncomfortable. But I honestly, like when I'm there, it really doesn't like, it's not like the lap of luxury or anything, but it's like, I don't really get bothered by it. It's like, I feel like that for me, that's like part of the whole thing. And like, I go in expecting not to be comfortable. And I think that's like part for me, like being self-reliant and like not having a lot for a week and just kind of like being out in the elements and not really trying to like control the elements necessarily is like something I kind of enjoy. I guess.
Like, I guess I would draw parallels, and it was actually, Julia, who pointed my ex, also a friend of Simon's. She said that Burning Man is just kind of like an extended ayahuasca retreat, which I totally agree with, right? Because like you're uncomfortable the whole time. You can either fight it or you can embrace it. Very high highs, very low lows. You know, you go from fuck this place, get me the fuck out of here. These people are insane.
Yeah.
To like, this is amazing. I love everyone. This is the greatest thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And it's very much like this emotional roller coaster. And it's kind of like the entire gamut of life experience distilled into one thing. And like, the whole like visual motif is very similar from like the neon and the colors.
Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison.
Yeah,
and it gets amplified. I think sometimes it gets amplified if you're in a camp, because I've seen complete camp meltdowns where it's just like, like on Sunday everybody loved each other, everybody's doing camping. On like Thursday, everybody literally wants to kill each other. Everybody in the entire camp. I think that you can definitely have that.
Yeah, it's very bipolar, and it's just like it's constant.
It's weird.
But to that point, you know, like I've also done the ayahuasca, and I feel like, you know, the first couple times I did it, like I was really fighting the discomfort the whole time. So it's like, fuck this, I'm not gonna puke, like I'm not gonna diarrhea, like I'm gonna control this shit. And I didn't have a good time. I was just like, I don't get it. You know, like I had some strange visuals, and it wasn't until I finally kind of embraced the discomfort, that it actually like opened up, and, you know, I understood the experience for what it is. So I feel like Burning Man's like very much the same, right? Like you kind of have to lean in. So I feel like you have certainly embraced the ethos.
Yeah, it's weird though, because I was able to do it there, but like you talking about your trajectory with ayahuasca, that's like, I'm like still in that place after 6 years or so of
really? I mean, you've done it all. Like you've gone to Colombia, you've
still there,
done it in the Amazon with the pythons.
I'm still in the spot that you just described though.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's odd. I don't know. I've thought a lot about it and worked through it or tried to work through it, and still, I don't know. I'm still there.
So when you do ayahuasca, that is like, do you purge or like?
Okay. I mean, not every time. I usually like, we'll do 2 nights. We'll do a weekend and two ceremonies. And then like maybe during one of them I'll purge. Maybe some weekends, not at all. It's not usually like it's not every time, but many times.
Yeah. Cause for me, like for the longest time, like I made it a thing. Like I'm not gonna purge.
No, I think the same thing. And I think everybody does. It's weird. It's like, I think everybody goes through that except for some people who have hundreds and hundreds of ceremonies under them.
Yeah, but some people at those retreats, they're like, they want to, like, they're like looking forward to it.
Well, some people for some reason think you have to. like they think that that's the point of it, or they were told that by someone. I don't know, but I've heard people who came to ceremony and didn't purge like the day after being like disappointed about it. Like, did I do it wrong? I didn't purge last night. Like, what is this stuff? That's odd. I don't know.
But I will say the most recent retreat that I went to was the first time that I ever did purge.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. How was that, bro?
It was like pretty violent, retching, and unpleasant.
Yeah.
But then the second it was over and the shaman had me like sit down, it was suddenly like untold Absolutely. Like new levels of like divine majesty.
Yeah. It's weird how you have to like hack the system kind of. It's like you do this terrible stuff to your body and then your mind goes to this other place, but you have to do that to get there. It's like, it's weird.
Right. And so let's go deep for a second. What do you think is going on when you're tripping? Like, you know, because I acknowledge that on one level, it could just very well be chemical reaction in your brain, but my subjective experience is the complete opposite of that.
Are you speaking about ayahuasca specifically, or
even
psychedelics in general?
Yeah, or even just let's take it a step further. Like, what is the nature of reality? Like,
going kind of deep. I don't know. Who know? Like, I'm skeptical of anybody who says they know. Right. You know, I think I've had, as I'm sure you have, and everybody has. You know, we occasionally have insights and see things a different way, or see things from a different angle, but there's no like cohesive understanding of what's going on. I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think you get glimpses of something.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the totality of like how it all fits together, no idea.
So I think all I really know about consciousness is there's a lot more going on than we think is going on, and there's more out there. But I think generally we'll get to consciousness and what that actually means. But like, I think generally what I feel like is happening, and I've read a bit about LSD and what's actually going on in your brain while you're taking it. I'm sure I'll butcher this, but generally my understanding is that your neurons are just firing all the time, making all these connections that aren't always there. And like just pathways are opening up and just, it's like everything at once kind of. And I think that's sort of generally what always happens is it's kind of like opening you up to more of an understanding of what's beyond what you're normally aware of, I guess.
But I guess like, so do you believe that what you're experiencing though is always there, and it's that, you know, the compound is tuning you into that frequency, or is it sort of an illusion of the brain?
I don't know. I think that's the question, and that's what everybody, and I'm not sure. I mean, I'd like to think yes, but I go back and forth in my own mind. I mean, is this just like, is consciousness just engineered? Like did consciousness and our understanding of what we are, is that like, did we evolve to have that? Like is our understanding of consciousness an evolved trait that it like serves us from an evolutionary standpoint? Have we come to this understanding of the world because it benefits us and our perpetuation of our species? Or is this like something like divine and sacred that we're given? And I'm not really, I don't know. Like, I'd like to think yes, maybe, but I'm not really sure. I go back and forth, and I think that's a fine place I think that's an okay place to be in. I don't feel like I'd like to maybe have a better understanding of it later on in my life, but I feel like that's why I'm here, is to come to an understanding of what I'm living in every day, I guess.
I feel like I'm, for myself, like pretty convinced of, you know, my sort of worldview of what the nature of reality is. You know, I would never kind of go out there and be like, yo, this is what it is, and you got to get on board with this shit. But in terms of like my personal understanding, you know, I truly believe that like all of this is just kind of it is a simulation, but it's not a simulation in the sense that, you know, we're on a screen somewhere and like aliens are watching us. It's like there's just kind of like this divine mind, this universal consciousness that's dreaming all of us at once. So if you think of like a video game, like we're all just kind of NPCs, like non-player characters being run by the same intelligence. yeah, could be wrong, right? But as far as my experiences with the multiverse, meaning psychedelics, like, you know, that has been the conclusion that I've drawn. But, you know, again, could just be brain on drugs.
I mean, I think that sounds like a pretty common sentiment to have. And even like, I think that I've heard similar feelings before, but I also feel like everybody's kind of talking about the same thing and just saying it in a different way.
Yeah. If you read like Ram Dass, or you listen to Deepak, or like any of like the major like mainstream gurus, they're all kind of saying the same shit. Even like Eckhart Tolle, like everyone's always like, yeah, Power of Now changed my life. And you read Power of Now and he's like, yeah, you know, you're not your thoughts, you're the observer behind your thoughts. And it's like, well, wait a second, what exactly are you saying there? Like literally, you know, that there is like another entity kind of existing in the background of your everyday, you know, like consciousness, which is crazy. And like, you don't really hear like Oprah's like plugging Eckhart Tolle and stuff, but she's not like, oh, so tell us like, what are the implications of what you're actually talking about here in this New York Times bestselling book? But yeah,
it's like a weird disconnect between like us as a animal species and our mind. And like, it's like, we're trained to act a certain way, or we respond instinctively to certain situations. But we're aware that we might not be responding in the correct way with regards to the people around us or what's best for us. And there's like this constant battle between dealing with your animal self and your more highly evolved conscious self.
But even like, I'll be on a hike and just sort of be like blown away at how much is going on in my brain. Like, cause you're processing so much, right? You're coming down the hill. You're like, oh, there's a rock there. I might slip here. Like feet goes here. And I think about like how much processing and awareness is going on just on something routine, like a hike. And, you know, if I think about it too hard, it can blow me away.
It breaks your head, man. Don't do that. Yeah. It's crazy. I was on a hike with my dad a few weeks ago. We went up to the Redwoods, as I was telling you about, and we got into a bit of a conversation about consciousness and the simulation. And
you can talk about that with your dad?
I talk about it with my dad.
Wow.
Yeah. My dad is great. We're very close. He is Catholic, and he's serious about his faith, but would never try to convert someone or change your opinion, and is also very open to hearing opposing views and changing his and really listening to people. So he's a very sane Catholic. He believes what he believes because that's what he believes, and doesn't hold anybody else's beliefs against them. And I also, one thing I respect about him also is that he knows all the history behind Catholicism. And he's very into like cool. theology, and he knows why the rules are the way they are.
Nicaea,
he knows, he's very well versed on the history of the church and why things are the way they are and why they've changed over the years. But we were hiking the Redwoods, and at dinner afterwards, we were talking about whether or not trees are conscious, and like what consciousness means and all of that. And I mentioned simulation theory. And I laid out who wrote the simulation paper? It's Nick
Bostrom.
Yeah. I read his paper, and he lays out like three possibilities, I think, right? Like one is, no civilization anywhere in the universe has ever come up with technology to make a simulation.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with his paper, but
it breaks it down, and I'll probably butcher it, but I think that this is generally his premise. Is that's option one, is that this technology has never existed anywhere in the universe. Option two is some civilization somewhere in the universe has been able to create a simulation, but decided not to for some reason. And then the third possibility is some civilization has created the technology to create a simulation and create a simulation. And if you go with option three, then by probability theory, we are most likely to be inside of a simulation right now.
How are the probabilities why do the probabilities point in that direction?
I'm sure that he would explain it better than me, but my understanding is for each real existence, there would be an infinite amount of simulated existences if that technology existed. So once the technology exists, you can create an infinite amount of simulations. So if you were probability wise, where am I existing? Well, there's an infinite amount of simulated universes. So I'm probably in one of those.
Got it. So in a universe where such technology exists, it would stand to reason that there would be multiple sort of simulated.
That's my understanding of the argument. And it's interesting to think about that, but I mentioned that to him and we talked a bit about it. And then the next day we were driving home and he said, wait a minute, but this like simulation theory, like, isn't that like depressing? Like if you're just kind of like in this thing that's not real with no purpose, you're just controlled by something else that's not actually real. And we kind of got in this back and forth of like, is that depressing or is it not?
Because the distinction is meaningless though, right?
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
And I almost think the simulation theory is like the most plausible argument for the existence of God in the first place.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're just describing it differently. Like, okay, there's a God who created our actual reality versus some creator of the simulation that we're living in. To me, it sounds like the same thing.
Yeah. Like the distinction is meaningless. Although, you know, I would say I definitely take more comfort in the idea that this is a simulation in like a universal God mind versus like some supercomputer. Because at least in the God mind scenario, that means that we are all God, right? And, you know, so there's implications there in terms of like, oh, like I can create, you know, I can manifest my reality and, you know, I'm one with all things at all times. And, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like there's definitely, for me, at least personally, some more positive implications versus like, oh, we're literally in a matrix, and there are aliens watching us on a screen right now, like scratching, stroking their chins.
I think it can be depressing, but I almost feel because his question was like, what's the point of doing anything then, or like, what do I live my life for? But I struggle to express how I feel about this, but I almost feel like it's like more beautiful to just be doing things for the sake of doing them and not like I'm in a simulation right now. There's no point in doing anything, but I choose to create art, or I choose to have friends, or I choose to sit at the beach and enjoy the beautiful weather. Like, it's almost like that's more pure just because there is no point in it in the first place.
Yeah.
Versus like, I see people who like in the church, like people saying, well, we should be nice to others because then we go to heaven. Yeah. It almost feels like that's like disingenuous. Like you're doing this because you want to get something from it, but if you just think that there's no point to anything, but still find a way to create and enjoy beauty, it's almost like that's incredible.
Yeah. like experience for experience sake.
Yeah.
Which I agree. I tend to be like, if there is a meaning to existence, it is simply to exist.
Yeah.
And, you know, find your joy and kind of enjoy life, right? Not like, oh, I was nice to these people so I don't have to go to the bad place.
Yeah. So I don't know. But I can understand how that would be like a very terrifying concept for a lot of people to understand. We also talked a bit about free will and we also had a bit of a back and forth on like the distinction of like whether or not we actually have free will. And in some ways, I think we don't have free will just because of kind of what I said about the animal self and like how you instinctually react to situations. And I feel like the way that I react to anything right now at this point in my life is a result of all of my past experiences, most of which I haven't actually had control of.
Right.
So it's like if I was incredibly lucky to be born here to a great family and in a great country and in a great place. But if I was born somewhere else, my life would be shaped very differently and the way I would feel about things would be very different. So I would act and respond to things very, very differently. So I think in some way, I don't know if I really have free will at any point in time.
Yeah. I mean, I think we do, right? Because in any given moment, you know, you can choose. Like I think there may be forces sort of that may be pushing us in a particular direction at any given time based on our personal histories, our genetics, our, you know, et cetera. But I think, you know, when you boil it down to moment, I think I think each person does have sort of the agency to make that decision, you know, then and there.
But aren't even like the decisions you want to make in the first place kind of steered by whatever happened previously in your life? Like your desires and what you think is important and not important are probably your upbringing, your family have a lot to do with that, which you don't really have control over. So I don't know.
Well, that's a problem I feel like philosophers have debated for time immemorial.
Absolutely. Maybe get one of those people on the podcast. More interesting than me.
Well, I think Emily, our videographer, is a philosopher. So
oh, really? Are we, just give us a thumbs up or down. Make any sense? No? Awesome.
Are we making sense or are we just talking out of our asses? I mean, we're a little bit of both. Hope.
I used to get my hair cut in the student union at UCLA. And there was this guy that would cut my hair who was a philosophy major. And he was talking to me about it one day. And I was like, hey, like, why are you a philosophy major? Like, what are you going to do with it? And he's like, chicks love it. That was like his actual answer. Like that was why. Cause like it got him chicks. I
mean, how does that work
good
though?
For him.
You roll up to a girl at a club, like, hey, do you like Kant?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it seemed to be working for him, but he was also cutting hair. So I'm not sure where that was going to take him.
Well, maybe I'll try that at tonight's party. Like, I'm a philosophy major. I'm a utilitarian.
You went to Hawaii recently, right?
I did.
Tell me about that trip because we haven't even really talked about it much.
Yeah. Hawaii was phenomenal. So without disclosing too much about my sort of like professional life, you know, I'm kind of between roles. So I had a 3-week vacation from kind of the end of one job to the next. And yeah, I decided to take full advantage. And
I'm not going to disclose anything about his personal life, but he's very successful in the industry that he's in. People know him. People talk about him around town. He's very successful.
No, I don't know about any of that. But yeah, decided to do a solo trip to Hawaii. And like, you know, I've never really done solo travel before.
That's awesome.
So I was a little nervous. And initially, actually, I was going to go to Tulum, which gave me a lot of anxiety because like I don't speak Spanish. I'm going to have to, you know, you fly into Cancun and then you got to rent a car and drive yourself 2 hours down to Tulum.
It's a lot of work.
And then then I started reading about how if you stay at a resort, you're supposed to like not flush your toilet paper.
I've heard that there's all sorts. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like you're just supposed to just wipe your ass and then throw it in the wastebasket.
Well, I think that's what most of Latin America is like. When I visited Colombia, that's what we do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although in the city you can flush toilet paper, which is like a luxury.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, because it's on the beach. So I was already having a lot of anxiety around it, and then I read about some global warming or climate change caused seaweed landfall to where the beaches are overrun, you know, with just brown seaweed. It smells disgusting. And I was on like a Tulum WhatsApp and I just had to confirm like, hey folks, like what's the beach sitch? And someone just wrote back like poo emoji.
Yeah. Cancel the trip.
I was like, okay. Like we're going to need to change gears here.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing a week in Oahu. Awesome. Very sort of spiritual experience, kind of doing it solo. Did, the first half in the North Shore of Oahu, which is kind of the quiet, more nature side. And then the other half in Waikiki, which I think going forward, I may just avoid Waikiki entirely.
Mm-hmm. Why is that?
Because it's kind of like Miami, like it's Vegas like a big city vibes.
It's not like, the thing is like, anywhere in Hawaii, it's hard to complain about, but it's like you're really splitting hairs when you start to compare.
Yeah, fair.
But I think in the terms of what is Hawaii, Waikiki it's just a big city.
Yeah, and then in terms of the COVID sitch, it's like they're letting as many people in as they were pre-pandy, but there's still capacity restrictions for restaurants. So literally, like I couldn't go anywhere for just a meal without having to wait in line for like 40 minutes. Even to where like, okay, so this restaurant I can't go to. What if I just show up at go to the mall, one of the malls, and go to the food court. And even that, I was waiting in line. But that's all bullshit.
You went to malls in Hawaii? Wow, that's
well, because I was like, okay, I'm rolling solo. I don't need to eat at the restaurant. Yeah. So like, I eat a lot of pho. I feel like it's a healthy meal, and it's the meal from my motherland. And so I was like, I want to go get some pho. And even then, like waiting in line. But by far the highlight of the trip was two LSD trips spaced apart.
That's awesome. Hawaii's a great place for that.
Yeah.
Where were you when you?
So first one I did. So I did a few nights in the North Shore, and I decided that the last night in the North Shore I would upgrade to like a nice resort. So I stayed at this place, the Turtle Bay Resort, which is like phenomenal. And like they're like situated on this bay, kind of overlooking this bay. And their pool is like right there, kind of on the overlook. They have daybeds like nice. Positioned, high above the bay that you can just chill there. So I stationed myself there, took my medicina and just hung out, for the whole day. I feel like I was pretty incognito, but I was probably like, I would stand up a lot and just like stare out. And I'm like, okay, like maybe people know what's up with me.
No, nobody knows. They're drunk on Mai Tais. Nobody has.
Yeah. But definitely like, one of the single most epic experiences of my entire life.
I want to ask about it, but first I have to say I had one of the most embarrassing experiences of my life on a daybed in Hawaii. One time I was at the St. Regis in Kauai with a girl I was seeing at the time, and we went down to the pool, and I said, "Hey, that daybed looks comfortable. Let's go sit there." And then we were there for about 5 seconds, and then a guy came up to us and was like, "Oh, you have to like buy this daybed." What? And so I'm thinking like, okay, big spender here. Like, Simon, you're doing stuff. You could buy a daybed.
Yeah, you're staying at the St. Regis.
I'm doing things. It's okay. And then so he handed me the menu, and it was like $600 to reserve the daybed for the day. So I was like, oh, okay, my bad. Sorry. Got up, and immediately about 10 people come over to change the daybed and like straighten it all out and like remove the towels from it, replace them. I felt so bad about it and also really dumb.
But also that just seems absurd. You're
already no one else around. Also, I don't understand.
You're already like spending money to stay at the resort, and then they try to upcharge you.
Real racket over there. While I'm sipping like a $30 mudslide. It was a mess. But Tell me about your insights in Hawaii. Insights.
I don't know. Like, I don't know that there was any like particular downloads as much as just like, oh, okay. Like if I'm to believe that I am universal consciousness, just sort of like playing out, a role in reality, then I feel like it was like sort of peak God, experiencing God, as far as like, oh, okay. Like, based upon my like conception of what reality is, right? It's like, okay, we're all sort of just NPCs trying to like experience our joy. Kind of like, okay, like, you have a friend that visits the city or something, right? And you're like, oh, you're really excited to take them around LA and take them to the restaurants and see the cool shit. And you get to experience the city like through their eyes. Mm-hmm. And so the insight for me was like, oh, okay, so like this is like universal consciousness getting to experience itself through me. Mm-hmm. Like it already knows like how awesome like Hawaii is, right? But now it gets to have sort of kind of experience it through a new lens, through fresh eyes.
Interesting.
And yeah, I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be here. This is the point. And I guess that was kind of it. But yeah, it was just.
Do you feel like it was like easier to kind of connect being in that environment, or do you find like whenever I'm in Hawaii, I feel like much closer to nature or more like in
100%.
And 100%. So do you feel like it like being there kind of helped you connect with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's just something so sort of special and magical about Hawaii. Like the second you get there, and then even like some shit that blew my mind was like, there's no snakes. There's like no dangerous animals in their nature.
There aren't. Well, I mean, all of the animals were basically like stowaways on boats or like found a way there. I read something about they brought mongooses to Hawaii, I think to hunt like rats or something.
Okay.
But mongooses are like nocturnal, so they ended up just flourishing and not ever actually like serving their purpose. And now there's a bunch of mongooses running around. Are mongooses
dangerous?
They're not dangerous.
Okay.
They're not dangerous. I'm trying to think of the most. I don't know if there are there dangerous animals besides like.
No, like a tour that I went on was like, actually, there's like 0 dangerous animals in like the jungles of Hawaii.
I think if there'd be like an insect.
Like anywhere else, right? You got snakes, you got scorpions, you got tigers. I was like, oh yeah. So that it just solidified for me like what a special place.
Yeah,
the islands
absolutely.
are. Although one thing that did bum me out though is like most beaches I went to, the sand are like littered in plastic.
Oh really?
Yeah,
that's surprising.
Which is like huge bummer. Like if you're just sitting there and you kind of run, pick up a handful of sand, there's just like bits of plastic.
That's depressing. Yeah. I've never experienced that in Hawaii. Yeah. Really?
Maybe at least like there's one beach that outside of the plastic is like so phenomenally beautiful, Waimanalo Bay. But yeah, like every inch of the sand, like for the 3-mile beach, like tons of like little bits of plastic in there.
That's depressing.
Yeah, really
I noticed the same when I was in the Amazon. I did a trip to the Amazon. I lose track of time again. What was that like? About 2 years ago.
That was when you met Jules, right?
Yeah. Well, I'd seen her before, but the first time we actually really talked. We were on the Amazon River, and I was like, it really depressed me the amount of trash there, because I think it's primarily just being unaware of the effect of it on the environment, but many of the people who live actually on the houses on stilts on the river, they just throw their trash into the river, and it's like it's depressing because it's such a beautiful and powerful place, and you see like bottles floating around or like plastic bags and stuff. Yeah, it's too bad.
Such a bummer.
I think it's mostly just not being aware of what that is, because I mean the river's so massive. It's like you throw something in there and then it's not your problem 5 seconds later. It's like it's floating down and someone in Brazil is going to deal with it.
So like when you were there, did you like see anacondas?
We didn't see any anacondas. We didn't see any anacondas, but somebody that I was with said that they had one of the locals who lived there. We were standing along the river, and he said that there were anacondas, and at one point he saw an anaconda come out of the river and grab a horse. Like a full horse, drag it into the river, and just never saw it again.
I don't know what I would do if I saw that. I think I would lose my shit.
I would be on a plane out of there.
Yeah.
like what? That's so wild. But we saw dolphins. There's dolphins there. I think there's 2 species of dolphins. There's a pink and a gray one. We saw both, and lots of birds. And I guess that I don't know what else we saw in the water. We saw some piranhas and fish and whatnot, but no anaconda. I think it'd be cool to see an anaconda, but I don't know if I would want to see
even the piranhas. Like, and you've done this retreat like a few times now, right? At least twice that I know of.
Yeah, well, that was the only time we actually went to the Amazon. The other time we went down and went to Putumayo, which is kind of like right at the Amazon's like fuzzy because it's so massive. I guess I don't know if Putumayo is technically considered Amazon, but it's like very South Colombia and kind of like where the rainforest starts.
Okay,
sort of.
It's actually. Let's take it back to our bread and butter for a little bit. Because we've diverted considerably. Although I definitely want this pod to kind of address
this podcast is going to be a mess. Let's be honest.
But you're very well traveled. Like, talk to me about some of the festivals you've been to, because I feel like you've been to some crazy ones.
I've been to, you know what? It's crazy calling this back because like we were talking about earlier, I mean, I haven't done anything since pandemic started. I haven't really been to public events, but I've done the California circuit. I haven't traveled much for festivals, but I've done Lightning in a Bottle.
You've done Lucidity, right?
It wasn't Lucidity. Here? It was Symbiosis.
Okay.
I never went to Lucidity. I don't quite get the vibe of what's there. And I never really known anybody who's gone to
Lucidity.
Lucidity.
Like what's the distinction between the two?
I think Lucidity is the music's a little different. I think it's more like I think they play a lot of breaks and like some more like bassy sort of
like
stuff.
Psy breaks, like tip.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think they also have some more like organic live performance too, but I don't like, they don't go all night. I think they stop the music around midnight or earlier each night. So I think the vibe is a lot of like camping or being there, but I've never been. So my apologies if there's a Lucidity fan out there and I'm completely wrong. No disrespect to Lucidity. I just don't know anything about it. I've never been. Lightning in a Bottle was great. I haven't been since they moved to the new location in Bakersfield.
Okay.
But I thought that was a pretty cool festival, cool vibe.
So one thing that you had told me about that I didn't get to experience until I like a little bit when we went to the LA Mayan Warrior and then again at Burning Man was the world of festival vendors.
Vendors,
like
yeah.
you could like do a real documentary, like a full documentary. It's like how before, there would be all these sort of stories and urban legends about carnies.
Yeah. Oh,
so I think the 21st century version of that is like festival vendors.
There's this whole like class of people, and this is no disrespect to any of them. I like, if you're living this life and you're enjoying it, that's great. Do your thing. But there's this like this whole like subset of society that's like, I'd say carnies, Renaissance fair people, festival vendors. I might stop there. I think.
Do you think they're like different shades of the same type of person?
I think there's overlap between those three segments.
Festival, for instance, like driving into Burning Man, right? Like we passed like a whole camp that at first you're like, is this like the entrance to Burning Man? Like you don't really know what you're passing. And it's like festival vendors. They're like selling like swag, like cool costumes and shit for you to wear like into the burn.
Yeah.
And like, I remember talking to
people. Yeah. They're all the same.
Like the guy was like, yeah, so I've pretty much been on acid for like the last like 6 days.
That's how they live their lives. Yeah.
Yeah. Like just like,
it's wild. Those guys like, I mean, there are no vendors at Burning Man, but like at the festivals where there are, those guys just like sleep in their vendor tents. Like that like
they live there. And they travel all year, right? From festival to festival.
Yeah, it's wild.
And they don't actually go, but they're usually like not part of the festival. It's like they set up camp maybe like a mile or two ahead of it to catch the people on their way in.
I was even just thinking of I was thinking of the vendors inside, but like the people outside, no disrespect, but that's almost a whole nother ballgame.
Okay,
like if you're not paying the vendor fee, but you're posting up miles outside of the that's like a whole, you're on another level. You figured it all out.
It's like a fascinating life.
It's great. There's a lot, they're like gypsy type people.
Yeah.
And it's something else.
It blew my mind. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
You live like this. Pretty awesome.
It's a whole thing.
I'm jelly, but also judgmental a little bit at the same time.
I feel like they must make decent money, right? I don't know. They mark all of their stuff up. Like they buy LED lights on Alibaba or whatever. And I'm sure they, I don't know. I feel like they're probably making
huge markups, right? Like to buy some like dumb shawl.
I don't know if that life is for me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know it's for me either, but I'm like a little envious.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe when this takes off, we can produce a documentary.
We should just try it out. Let's just get some wholesale stuff, go out to a festival and just see if it suits us. Let's just
drop shit a bunch of stuff from China.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like post up.
Well, I mean, next level vendor is at EDC in Vegas. There's an entire vape village, which is exactly what it sounds like. It smells like strawberry. It smells like strawberry vanilla
and cotton candy.
It's an entire like zone for vape vendors. It's like you like walk through there. It's all like hazy, and there's like they have free samples of vapes, and it's the the guys that have like the real serious vape. Like, how do you even carry that vape piece
like
around?
A giant,
the
like,
whole
battery.
thing, like exact temperature control, like custom vape liquid, like that whole thing. There's an entire village of
village. So like a tent.
No, it's like, well, they call it Vape Village, but what it is like it's a whole zone of the festival where it's all vape vendors.
Okay.
It's like it's a pretty large area, and it's not enclosed. Everything's outside there, but it's just like tent after tent, and some people just out in the open, like selling vape juice.
Okay, and like what's the vibe in terms of like the clientele?
Well, I mean, I think we all know the ideal clientele for Vape Village. Like
I feel like vapors are vape. Yeah, I mean, vapors are a varied bunch, though. I mean, I guess that skews low.
Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking about 80% of the clientele. Obviously, there's that 20% that's like they're like regular people, but that 80% are like they're bros with tanks who they're trying to get vaped up. You know, trying to blow some clouds.
That was like we did the house party.
Yeah.
And you had the vape videos
Dude,
on.
there's like, we went deep into, had anybody out there viewing, have you like right here, hit pause on this podcast and then open a new tab and then go to YouTube and search Vape Championships. Thank me later. But then come back to this tab after you're done to finish because we need the view. It's like the YouTube algorithm is like, you got to watch it for a long time to get rating. So come back and then finish the video. But first, search Vape Championship. Enjoy. Thank you later. Dude, they're like, oh man, it's like I'm almost going to throw vape, like professional vapors into those three groups that we talk. I think there's definitely an intersection there as well.
But yeah, so a group of us had rented a house to go, to hang out for a weekend, and Simon had put on Vape Championships.
I do that sometimes.
And you were like selling it, but then by the end of it, everyone was just completely mesmerized. Like, dude, where
I'm telling you, it's impressive what they do. Like there's like, just watch it. But they do all sorts of well, obviously they do like the rings, but then people do like triangles and like this. There's like colors and all sorts of. It's crazy. It's wild.
Wait, colors? You can have like dyed.
There's one vape guy that has these like colored vape videos, but I'm not sure if that's added. I'm not sure if that's like processing that's added or not. It might be like video effects or something. But there's a particular guy. If you YouTube Vape Championship videos, you will find him. But he has like colors when he blows smoke. I don't know. That can't be healthy if it's real. It's not.
I mean, yeah. Vaping. I mean, I feel like vaping's still more healthy than cigarettes, right?
I don't even know. I don't know. I have no idea what the science is behind it, but I will say that like I've experimented with vaping, but my lungs don't feel good. Like they feel not like off, like different from smoking. Like smoking, I just feel kind of like gross, but like when I vape, it's like another. Yeah,
it's like your like alveoli or like trembling or something.
Nick Dang MD over here. Look at this guy.
Some AP bio 20 years ago.
Yeah, man. Dude, those vape champion. Can you imagine if like you met someone and you're like, what do you do for a living? And
I'm a professional
I'm
vapist.
A professional vapor. Like,
is it vapor or vapist?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I like vapist. I mean, it sounds too close to the other thing, but I mean, it has a good ring to it.
That's so crazy. Crazy.
Has vaping penetrated like mainstream talent competitions yet? Like, I feel like I might have seen like a guy on America's Got Talent or something.
I've definitely seen it on like, I think it was like maybe like the Ukrainian version of that or something, but I don't know if it's on the American version, but I've definitely in my YouTube travels seen like those shows. And there's a guy that like, it's so odd. Like the guy like gets on stage and they start playing music and he's like,
oh yeah, because they kind of act like magicians.
They do. They're like
the way they move. They're like,
yeah. It's a whole thing. I don't even.
It is a type of magic, I guess.
I think the tricks are impressive. Don't get me wrong. Like I think it's cool that you're able to do that. I also think it's a little suspect that you're able to do that. You know, if you're spending that amount of time vaping and like fine tuning your vape, like I don't know.
And like when you're practicing, are you using like nicotine free vape, or are these
vaping to go beers in the airport? It's the world we live in now, you know, right?
Yeah.
It's
I mean, I feel like at this point we should disclose to the audience that we have had like major technical
had a couple technicals. We've also had a great time.
It's been a good time.
Having a great time.
Amazing time, but we've had memory card malfunctions,
couple technicals,
multiple takes. We were talking about vaping for like 5 hours.
Entirely too long. That's just the nature of the business that you're in now. Being a podcast, you got to roll with the punches. You got to make it happen.
It is the nature of the business.
Make it happen. This actually happens to Joe Rogan all the time, but Jamie is such a ninja that you don't even notice. He just cuts it live, splices stuff live. They use like 4 different cameras throughout the show. It's crazy.
Yeah, are there other producers, or is it just Jamie? Like
it's only Jamie, but he has 3 hands.
It's right. I feel like Emily is as magical as Jamie.
She is. We should get Emily like in front of the camera at some. Maybe she could. I don't know.
At some point we should get her a mic.
We should.
And then she can chime in.
We could also like bring stuff up. Emily, bring that up on you. Vape Championships. Yeah. Emily, bring that up.
Can you get that video up?
Hey, can you bring that
video up?
Bring that up. Simulation theory. Can you bring that paper up?
Yeah. That's goals, like to get to the point where like, you know, we can just like, oh yeah, pull that up.
It's next level when you just have someone use the internet for you.
Yeah.
That's where I want to get to.
Yeah. And like all the guests are always like so like amazed by Jamie on Rogan. Like he'll have everything pulled up like before they even ask him.
Yeah. He is actually very impressive, but I don't know anything about producing a podcast. So I feel like I probably don't appreciate the level of producer that he is, but everybody raves about how fantastic he is. So I'll
because they have like multiple cameras in that studio.
Absolutely.
So he's negotiating all of that.
Yeah.
Like I feel like on Segura's podcast, Tom Segura's podcast, like he has a team. There's like multiple people running shit, but Jamie's like a one-man show.
It's so meta to be like talking about podcasts on a podcast.
I know, right? Cool. Right? Like, but like, is it not cool or is it cool? Like, I don't know.
No, I think it's
like,
fine.
Is it cool to reference like Rogan, who is like he's like the source.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. He's like Mr. Podcast. I don't know.
I've never, how far back in his podcast have you ever gone? Because you could listen to podcast number 1, right?
I don't know if I've listened to one, but I've definitely like,
it'd be interesting to go back. I think they were very, very
early
different.
Ones where it's like they're using a webcam and it's just like in his house.
Yeah. Well, that's like you. I mean, like 5 years from now, when you have like your own studio and Emily's still shooting and you, it's a whole thing. You'll look back to this low budget podcast with whatever content I produce, whatever we're doing now, and I don't know. It'll be like a little token of your beginnings.
Hopefully, man.
That's where it's going, dude. It's been a pleasure. It's wild, the array of things that we can talk about fluidly. Like we can go from consciousness and simulation theory to vaping and festival vendors and then back again. And it's just that's a beautiful thing, and that's one of the reasons that I really value our friendship and who you are.
Likewise, man.
Such a smart and interesting person with a variety of views. So it's always great talking with you.
Thanks. Likewise. And thank you for dropping in.
It is my
Halifax's #1 hard trance EDM DJ / vape enthusiast.
I'll mess around and get into some gabber. If you book me, see what happens. Little levels, little gabber, we'll do it.
Yeah. And losing it on repeat. All right, folks. I think we're done. Like and subscribe. I keep forgetting to tell people.
Smash the like button.
Smash the like button.
Destroy the subscribe button. Tell a friend. Enable notifications. What else do they say? I think that was it. Hit the bell to enable
Follow us on Instagram, Side Note Media. Follow me on Instagram, Decoy Nick.
Thank you for bearing with us through whatever we've done for the last hour.
This one was an interesting one. All right. See y'all next week.